To this computer.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is your chairman. I'd like to call the meeting of the Kansas African American Affairs Commission to order. I'll start with a roll call. Dr. New,
Present.
Commissioner Westbrook,
Present.
Dr. Davis.
Present.
Great. I did not have an executive director update. And I would throw the floor then to our executive director, Stacy Nutt.
Give me just a second. I'm
No, right
writing
now.
down who's here. Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Executive Director Nell. I only have a brief update, and then we do have a special guest who's joining us today to give a presentation. So my brief update of what's been going on is that, as many people are aware, we had the Black Legislative Day last month in February after our most recent meeting. I would count that a success on lots of measures. We had approximately 150 people there. The numbers were a little smaller than previous years, mainly because when I woke up that morning, there was snow on the ground and I was coming in from Olathe. So I imagine that in various spaces around Kansas, the weather might have been a slight deterrent for people making the trip if they were not already local. But we had about 150 people there. Lots of presenters. Lizone Grays was one of our presenters. A very successful vendor fair, and we are going to potentially make. Oh, here comes Dr. Crystal Lewis. Changes of how Legislative Day is run in the future. We learned some things. And then the other update. Oh, at the Black Legislative Day, the governor was there. She did a Black History Month presentation, a proclamation, and I think it just went very well. I know Dr. New gave a presentation, so thank you, Dr. New, for your time and expertise. I know, like I said, Lizone Grays was there. He gave a presentation. Yes, Mr. McCormick?
Yeah, this is the chair. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say that KBLC's board chair did a tremendous job organizing that event.
Why, thank you. Yes, yes. So there we go. So the other thing I was going to mention about Black Legislative Day, we will continue to have Black Legislative Day in the future for Dr. Crystal, who's joined us as our newest commissioner. That is something that, honestly, the Black Legislative Day had been taking place before I was appointed to this position. I think it's just one of those things that KBLC, the Community Voice newspaper, and KAAC have been doing for several years. I inherited this wheel, and I'm just trying to keep it rolling and to make take things further into the future. The other update, the only other thing that I've done legislatively, is that there was a bill put forth by KBLC to have Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day be officially recognized by the state of Kansas. And I did give testimony on that bill. That hearing happened to coincidentally be on the day of Black Legislative Day. So I kind of scrambled over to the meeting to give testimony on that bill. Unfortunately, that bill died in committee, which was a disappointment. I will say that. I don't think I have a problem saying that. I've been quoted in the newspaper saying it's disappointing and not surprising. I think even more so because there were some children there who came to give their testimony, which, the bravery to have fourth graders come in front in that very intimidating space with the microphones and everything, and to give their testimony and to have that bill die in committee was disappointing and not surprising. So it is not unheard of for bills to have to be be presented several times, several years running. That happens a lot. So I imagine that there are plans to try to reintroduce that bill next legislative session. And then, of course, to continue to promote it, because there was no mandate to the bill. It wasn't requiring school districts to participate. There was no demand or forcing school districts to participate. So we imagine that school districts around the state will participate in Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, even without a state official recognition. So those are my only two real executive director updates. I will say, in terms of budget, the pins and sticky notes, because I reported how much I spent, that was great. But then the invoice counted in shipping. So those numbers are slightly higher by about $25. So once it's on the agenda to come up with a budget committee, I'll go over those numbers. But when they gave me the quotes, they didn't account for shipping. So there's a slight adjustment to those numbers. And I'm like, dang, if I'd known you could charge me $25 for shipping, I would have driven to the other side to Peak and picked them up myself. But that's That is the entirety of my executive director update. I turn it back over to you.
Mr.
introduce our
Chair, any
guest.
questions for our executive director?
One,
Yes, Commissioner Davis.
it's Commissioner Davis. I was sorry the weather did kind of chicken me out about showing up that day, but when I was at the State House Wednesday for the film promoting Medicaid expansion, the American Cancer Society had its legislative day, and I was impressed at how many young folks had come out. I don't know whether they were students, employees, or what, but just showed you the power of those days as far as meeting with legislators, and it's something we need to continue to push.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, here.
Yes. And I think in terms of the future, I could take a second to talk about thinking through what it might look like next year, the legislative day. Mainly, we are outgrowing the space is really what it's coming down to. Even the way it was organized this year, we had speakers on the first floor and speakers on the second floor, because in previous years, we've had over 200 people show up, and the building is just not designed to do an event for 200 people, much less the hearing, the echoing of in the halls. And so, again, KBLC, KAAC, and the community voice, and I would also like to really lean in on the membership of KAAC here. We're looking at next year having the legislative day just be a legislative day where we spend time teaching people ahead of time what it means to go to committee meetings, what it means to do testimony, like training people and how to actually engage with the legislature. And then to use that time just as a vendor fair and just as time to set up to talk to legislators, or just go to committees or go to the floor and see what happens on the floor. So that's more of a day to engage with the actual legislature. Now, as I've said before, and by way of catching up, Dr. Crystal, because I may have said this before you were on, and it's on the agenda. What is the focus of KAAC moving forward this year? I would love KAAC to not be focused on the legislature. Let me tell you why. The legislature at best is 90 days out of a calendar year. And this year they're set to be done before Easter. So if everything that KAAC does is focused on the legislature, we aren't doing anything for a whole long time out of the year. So, and when we think about what will KAAC do, like we've been having this conversation, what will KAAC do moving forward? For any number of reasons, I'm not sure spending a lot of energy or efforts focused on the legislature is a good use of our time, because it really represents such a small amount of what the calendar year looks like. Now I'm truly done.
Mr. Chair, any questions about our executive director's remarks? If not, I'm going to take a point of privilege to depart just a little bit from our agenda and introduce our guest. Our guest is Lazone Grace. For more than 31 years, he has led IBSA Inc., a nonprofit that provides direct job preparation, customized placement retention, and support services. He does micro enterprise training and development, facilitates certification courses, and helps income eligible people referred by the Department of Children and Family Services. He's earned degrees from Washburn University in legal studies and public administration, and from Kansas State University in pre-law studies. Let's welcome our guest, Mr. Lazone Grace. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? Excellent. I'm not sure if you received any of the attachments that I sent in advance so that you could have a visual. Okay. No. Well, years ago, about 23 years ago, around 2001, 2002, I ran into a brother who had started his own internet service company, and they called it Nubonics. This was back when there was DSL. And what these brothers did out of Atlanta, they actually put their monies together, and they were using the same backbone that AOL, Earthlink, and everyone else was using. Their spin on it was to make their opportunity not just providing DSL internet access, but also to give a way of giving back. And so organizations could actually create a page, whereas if you were to get your people to sign up for their service, which was $19.95, considering AOL was $23.99 or whatever, that $5 of that could go back to your organization. Me being the type of thinker that I am, I'm looking at the bigger picture. So I go and do the research, and Kansas had about 12 to 15,000 Black folks who was paying for DSL internet service. So sort of like if we could get them to switch, and go into a fund, we would be delivering something that people were using anyway, but we would be able to be capturing some of that money so that we could fund some of the different programs and things of our times back then. Again, this was back in 2001, 2002. And so I was able to convince then director of the KAAC, Sister Pamela Johnson Betts, to listen to me, and then the commission at that time. And then they did sort of adopt what was called the Kansas African American Community Development Fund. And maybe Stacy can share this with you at a later time. And this was going to be where the KAAC created this fund and promoted it to get people to switch. And that $5 per person per month would come to that fund. And then on an annual basis, we will be able to be in a position to start distributing some grants and different things of our own for our own specific purposes. It's really just sort of using the moment for it is. DSL is gone now because fiber and broadband rolled up. But what the fund was supposed to add to, what the raised funds would do, was take care of some scholarships, business assistance, and other African American programs as we see fit in our specific areas across the state. And so going through the part of DSL or Nubonics, which was the company, that was a little bit different because there were some specific steps that needed to be taken through the state to make sure that there was open and fair competition from any other tech companies that wanted to provide the same thing. 30-day notice in the newspaper, nobody applied, so therefore that checked off. We could go to the next level. Also, I'd inquired to make sure that whatever funds were raised would not be raided by the general fund, in case we raised a bunch of money. That was something that they said that would happen either. And finally, wanted to make sure that any donation that would come will be able to be tax deductible, whether that's from an individual or corporation. And part of the attachments that I had shared clearly states where contributions can be made to the KAAC. They are tax deductible, whether it's an individual. So it seems like to me, and this has been a long time coming, I've been trying to wait for this moment to come back again. At that time, that was in 2001, 2002, Facebook wasn't created until 2004, and YouTube until 2005. So these were sort of ideas before its time of looking at the collective economic spending of Black Kansans, and how can we not just raise money for the organizations in our city or for our neighborhood, but there's a bigger picture of our discretionary spending. And I sort of tuned it for the KAAC because of those specific reasons. Monies couldn't be rated and people could get their tax deduction. So, excuse me. Now with YouTube and Facebook and social media, we have a much better chance of marketing and promoting and doing larger footprint of trying to promote ourselves. And this is sort of when I was talking about collective economic empowerment, giving us a chance to be in the control chair, especially in the times that we live and what we're looking forward to on taking a proactive approach and getting other people on. Personally, I'll give $200 as soon as it's set up. And I'll pledge $200 a year. 1,000 people do that, that's 200,000. But maybe there's a corporation who wants to donate 25,000. But if there's no vehicle to make any investment into or any support into, then I think that we're sort of cutting ourselves out of a mix and going to continue to rely on somebody else to be doing something for us when we actually have a small capacity of doing some things ourselves. And so what I propose, even though DSL and the internet is out of the mix, one of the sheets that showed, I was trying to do this in Topeka as a fund as well, because there's some things that are local. We need to invest in ourselves just as we invest in Swisher and Budweiser. I work at a convenience store, so I know where we spend our money. But if a fund was set up, that doesn't preclude a place for people to make individual contributions as needed. It doesn't preclude where they can go and get a payroll deduction from any of their government or corporations on a monthly payroll basis, like they do for the United Way and other organizations. It doesn't preclude a corporation from making some type of a contribution into it just as well. I believe that if no other except, you know, African Americans in Kansas had donated, $20 a month or $200 a year, we would be setting the stage to whereas we are taking on some roles of doing some things for ourselves. And I do trust the commission that really looks across the whole state, that when it comes time on an annual basis to set out the RFP, to review and make recommendations on what projects would be funded, that would be a fair hearing and choice on what was funded. And then now that we have Facebook and YouTube, we can do some showing some of the progress of what's made when we're funding some of our own things. And so there are some other things that are probably intricate into this, because this was back in 2002. Now we're post-COVID, post George Floyd, post Black Lives Matter, and we have some uncertainty going forward. There are some things that, like for business assistance, back in 2002, we didn't have a network Kansas. We didn't have a lot of money that were really focused and targeted for women and minority businesses. And so it's not so much of making the money available for business assistance as it would be for helping to channel our entrepreneurs to the best pool of money, which would be Network Kansas, by working through those organizations like Create Campaign and OmniCircle and, of course, IBSA, because to access those funds, you have to go through a resource partner. And that's what we say, and the Black entrepreneurs of the Flint Hills. That's what we serve as, so that we may do some gap funding or may help with a match. But I think that we really need to help our businesses really understand what policies and monies are available and really try to help coordinate that strike right there. And the same with scholarships. So I'm just putting this out there because that scope may change. And if it is something that the KAAC is willing or interested to pursue further, maybe can designate someone to set the perimeters on what is the basic priorities of what these funds. It is not out of the question of raising $2.5 million a year for a fund of this nature here. But raising the money is easy. Making the decisions on where to give it to often isn't too easy. And so, since criteria have changed post-COVID, post George Floyd, I would probably want to revisit what those priorities of, if this funds was raised, what would it be? And I do have documents, that could help substantiate whatever my suggestions would be. But more than anything, it really shouldn't cost the KAAC. This isn't going to put money in Lazone or IBSA's coffers. I think the time is now of giving our people across the state and our allies a chance to support our efforts. It's tax deductible, which is really a reason like a lot of corporations and individuals give. So that's really what I can say without having you being able to see the attachments that I sent, which maybe it would make some of these things sort of fall into place and make a little bit more sense. I stand for any questions or comments.
This is the chair. What is it about KAAC that makes this plan of yours the best vehicle? And are we the ideal vehicle for a plan like this?
Yes, you are. And I say that because, a lot of people don't know, I'm 64 and I've been working with the state government, interacting since 1993 with the Finney administration, being a part at the front end of the KAAC. I've always my input and supportive of it. And I believe that that is the best vehicle, being a government vehicle and not a nonprofit organization, because there's a lot more checks and balances that people will believe that they can trust, under this right here, other than a nonprofit organization with the directorships, that are unappointed, and not really beholden to someone. So I believe that as long as if the KAAC can accept contributions anyway and provide that same tax deduction as a nonprofit, that even as this leadership may change, it will still probably be one of the most trusted vehicles where people would look for these monies to land, whether that's a corporation or a wealthy individual, because it seemed that there's a temperance of safety there. If it was just a nonprofit organization, it's my idea. I could have rolled it out myself, and I've done things over the years that probably say I'm trusted. But I do believe that the CAC, I designed it with the CAC in mind. And then I'm just trying to come back because I still believe that the CAC is the best body for something like this to take place.
I had one more follow-up. Um, our membership can be kind of transient. Every 3 years, people come on, they come off. Wouldn't a fund like this need a little bit more stability to be effective?
What do you mean stability?
Well, again, our commission is pretty transient. I mean, we have members who roll on and roll off. And it would seem to me that you'd want people there for a longer term for a program like this.
Well, it's not a program, it's an initiative. This is giving back to us. Even I think that probably the best thing happens is that you are transitioning. As long as the priorities say, what I deal with public policy, I do it because I know the mayor, the commissioner, and the council member are going to be gone. But what they can't do is change the priority and the policy. So all of them happen to adopt that. So if the priorities of what these funds are going to be used, the conflict of interest, are going to be, then that just becomes a new uh, RFP, for whoever the next groups that are going to be applying for the funds. But the process of reviewing and recommendation, you're talking about one time of year where you put out the RFP and you do the recommendations and then you make the award so that it wouldn't be, burdensome, as well as, a percentage of that being used to print off the nice flyers and posters and, setting up a booth, and having them there for Juneteenth and the different events, that we have. Right now, we have a better chance because of the internet with Giving Tuesday. We can run campaigns during Black History Month and during Juneteenth, and then start educating the state in different events about what this fund is, what it can do, and building up, more awareness. Because people from across the state, Black folks from across the state, may never know any of you all. But what you can do can definitely make an impact in their neighborhood, in their city. And once they see that happen, that should be branding them on their minds that this is our organization. These are the things that we can do. And having some young people understand, how is this money going to help us for the future programs? There's more to fund programs through an initiative than it to being a program itself.
Thank you for those responses. I'll open the floor to anyone else who has any questions right now. But I would say that an initiative like this would seem to me to be impervious to a lot of the political swings, either right or left, because everybody seems to understand that business is important in this country. And developing business is really good for the state and for the country. So I'll open the floor to any other questions. Yes, Commissioner Trent Davis. We have two Dr. Davises.
Yeah. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Grays, Commissioner Trent Davis. And I'm sitting here listening, and I would imagine for it to continue through, and I think what Chairman McCormick was referring to is the political whims and desires of the commission could change from shades of gray to different shades over the course of a 10-year period. If we have an established program, if it's a scholarship program, if it's a business startup fund, if it's an established program of CAC, it may be a little less subject to the whims. Of course, on the other hand, it may also be more subject to oversight from the legislators. And I would love to have the problem of having too much money. Of course, too much money, our budget will probably get cut, but that's not a reason not to go out and get money. I mean, if we could get $2 million a year this way, tell the state, just fund our basic needs. We got the rest. But it's interesting. I guess we just need a direction and established program. I mean, if it was something just as menial, not menial, but as simple as all right, it's an expense paid, full ride to, I'll just make up a college, not to offend anybody's University of Michigan or Morehouse. I mean, and that's what KAAC is doing. You have competition. We will create other leaders just from the competition. Um, I guess seeing it on paper, I was running the pros and cons, and like to see things on paper, but it's as long as it doesn't interfere with our other financing or be subject. And the executive director might know to what extent are our initiatives under review or scrutiny either by the governor or the legislature.
This is the executive director. I would have to, I don't know. The short answer is I don't know. The longer answer would probably be it depends on how complicated something is. If KAAC decides we're going to host a Black Legislative Day, they probably don't care. If it becomes an issue of establishing a fund, taking in money, fill in the blank, then it becomes more complicated just by the nature of the question. Anything from where will this money be housed to who is responsible for keeping all of that personal identification information, so credit card numbers, banking routing numbers, all of that stuff secure. Like there's a lot that's going to go into if KAAC decides to pursue this. There's a lot that's going to go into it. I would have to talk to legal. And I do know every year they do an audit of what information does KAAC hold. Do I have anyone's, the fact that I have everyone's home address it's not problematic, but there's a reason why I do not take money. Because I don't want to be responsible for anyone's credit card number. But if this is something that is decided upon, then I would just need to work with the powers that be to figure out Dr. Newsback, what does that look like, and what kind of oversight there may be. Because I don't know what kind of oversight there may be. I literally don't know. I'd have to look.
Dr. New is joining us from San Francisco. You had a question.
Yes, and my apologies. My internet dropped. So I apologize if this has already been asked or answered. But I was wondering if we could have maybe maybe couple more examples other than helping businesses as to what could be included in an RFP that would go out to our statewide community. So we'd know maybe a wider scope of how something like this could benefit Kansans. And then my second part is if the KAAC is seen as the flow through agency, then would a portion of those funds go to things that KAAC itself would deem important that we could support beyond the scope of what we get as part of our state budget?
Well, I think that much of that is the decision on you. That would be your decision right there. I think that keeping things close in these are the three priorities, makes it easier. I think that the KAAC having a percentage of whatever is raised on an ongoing basis to cover those costs that needs to pay for the initiative. That could be copies for your brochures or meals for a meeting or something of that nature there. These things are appropriate when you are, discussing the business of the fund. I think that if it wouldn't have been stated in the KAAC brochure that it could accept contributions with tax deductions if they didn't want the process to happen. We just have to be creative on coming up with something, that is good. When it comes to the scholarships, that's why I said maybe a tougher conversation, needs to be had because some of the times that things change. I don't think that these monies here would be compiled to become a lifeline for ongoing funding for specific organizations or programs, maybe seed programs and getting people to that last mile, or not for ongoing, but to really help an organization. Maybe that may be a match to receive some federal funds or CDBG funds, or to work with. One of the criteria that I had going to nonprofits is that a for-profit business could not actually apply. But what a nonprofit, they're going through a nonprofit, they could go through that nonprofit that would work with them, to be their business coach and developer. They wouldn't just be left out there on here's money. And with some other, requirements, if you're going to get $200,000 to do something, we want to make sure that you're going to solicit Black contractors, and stuff to do the work. There's some things that we can do, with the funds that we probably could or should do. And I'm not sure what your first question was, Dr. New.
Yeah, thanks. No, just maybe, well, you had mentioned startups for businesses and scholarships. I just wondered if there might be some diverse opportunities for people other than just those two, so that we could make sure we're providing something that would help a wider range of Kansans other than those who want to go to college or those who want to start a business.
Well, I think that in knowing me, that there's some things that has to happen on the local level. We do have Go Topeka that are advocated for $500,000 a year that's available to our businesses. If we don't go to the table and get the money, then there's nothing more than I can do. And then there's some other, things through the community foundation on impact investing. So I don't, as I said before, I'm not aware if our businesses really know everything that is available to them and have that person who can walk them through the paperwork. We really started doing document preparation to help businesses because they don't know how to navigate the forms and sign up for the city. If we're working for the city and the state on increasing the amount of business that they're looking to do with Black and other minority businesses, then our businesses need to know that this opportunity exists, that the funding to get them in the door exists. So it doesn't take away our necessity of advocating when possible and open opportunity comes up on the local level, but this can be looked at as a larger picture. Uh, uh, but more for the nonprofits. And even when we start discussing about the scholarships are good, but I know that scholarship that we have given in the past wasn't more on GPA. It was more on you show that you were a voice in the community, something to whereas, and, you know, other than just the regular an essay or something of the nature there, that we can actually put some more teeth off into if we're investing in these young people to a scholarship and they go off and get a job at Facebook one day, then they can turn around and make a $10,000 a year contribution back to their fund because we were the ones who were there for them when it began. When we're looking 3 years down the road, 7 years down the road, we never know what type of impact we're going to have on some recipient on what we do. I think that we can have a better conversation on that business development and assistance side after I think everybody knows what really is available and what are we missing out on so that we can sort of shape this to add to those things that we're missing out on just to sort of
Can I jump in real
supplement
quick?
what we are already doing.
This is the chair. I just want to jump in real quick. We do have other business to take care of today.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. But I'd be willing to entertain one more question if someone had a question. If we wanted to reach out to you later, how might the commissioners reach you?
Well, via my email is probably the best. And I think that you have that.
Uh-huh. So I'll if any of the commissioners would like to reach out to Mr. Grays, I can keep you connected. And I just like to thank you. I love this idea. And I'd like to talk about it more.
Yes.
So with that, we'll bid you adieu and we will continue with our meeting. But thank you for thinking of us.
Well, thank you. And I hope that we can work together on this. Again, this has nothing to do with me or IBSA. It's 7 years down the road on what we can plan to make happen instead of guessing on what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Many thanks. I don't know what I did with my agenda.
We're at new business now.
Oh, yeah, we're at new business now.
Yeah, I think for the sake of just putting a period on what he said, obviously we're not in a situation to make any kind of decision today based on anything that he just said. So I think this might be something that what is on the agenda is this question of what are we doing this year, right? That's on the agenda, narrowing the focus of the year. And so when he approached me and said, can I come to the meeting? I said, yeah, because it's open to the public. Why would I tell you no? And I said, we are to this point of trying to decide what direction is KAAC going to go. And so I said, yeah, I'd love to have you come because it's part of the conversation that is on the agenda. But we'll go in order. The first thing is to decide a date for an in-person meeting. I know we've been talking about doing an in-person meeting, and we had tossed out this idea of doing it in the August meeting. So I just wanted to try to get something on the book so that we had plenty of advance notice so that everyone knew it was coming. And then I can go about finding a room in the Capitol to have it and picking a caterer so that I can feed you guys food and making sure that Dawn knew that I'd be doing travel vouchers. I mean, there's a little bit of legwork ahead of any kind of in-person meeting. So if we wanted to pitch that first Friday in August, which is August 1st, that way we can get it on everyone's calendar. Or if they're, and again, I'm just going on what's been said in the past, but I'm like, let's take a vote and move toward it.
So this is the chair. Are there other dates that people would like, or are we comfortable with this August 1st date? The floor is open.
August 1st, this is Commissioner C. Davis. August 1st works for me.
It works for me as well. This is the chair.
Commissioner.
It works for me as well.
Yeah, that's fine.
Works for me as well.
Okay, I guess it's anonymous.
I don't know if we need to vote on that. Do we need to vote?
No.
Okay. All right. So August 1st, 2025, 1:30. Is that enough time? Is that a nice mill so people who are coming from out of town can get to Wichita? Or we could go earlier so that you're not having to drive home too late. Is 1:30 still amenable to everyone? Okay.
And you said Wichita, correct?
No, I said, well, like for example, there are two commissioners in Wichita. There are people who are coming from out of town. So
Oh,
me
but the
saying,
meeting's
hey,
in Topeka.
that's correct. Yeah. Yes. If I were to say, let's meet at 8 o'clock in the morning, that might be problematic for people who are traveling. But 1:30 in the afternoon, ideally would give people an opportunity to make it to Topeka. So I will find a room. I will provide, I'll get you some food. Maybe we should say noon. So I should get you some food, but I'll have food. I'll have refreshment. We'll have a space. We'll do the things. All right. August 1st, 2025, 1:30 p.m. in Topeka. Room to be determined. Okay, fantastic. The next thing that was on our agenda is to have personnel for the budget committee. With our reworking of the bylaws, the only standing committee that we have is a budget committee. What we stipulate in the budget committee bylaws is that there needs to be at least one person represented from all of the political parties that are currently on KAAC. In case suddenly we get libertarians or no labels, we need to make sure that all political parties are represented, and that the budget committee will be working alongside the executive director, whoever the executive director is, just to have eyes on the budget. Like, for example, I bought sticky notes and Post-its, and oh, by the way, they decided that the shipping was an additional $25. Just eyes on the budget, which honestly, I think is a good idea. So we need to actually put people on the budget committee.
This is the chair. Is there a particular number that we need for this committee?
There was discussion about that in the last meeting. There was no number stipulated in the bylaws. I know that Commissioner McRoy indicated that it would be best to have an odd number of people just for the sake of breaking any ties. But in our bylaws, it does not state a particular number.
As the chair again, I'm thinking 3.
3, in addition to me, I would not have a vote. In addition to the executive director. Okay. And as per our previous discussion, Chairman McCormick, you were to look at the political makeup of the committee and then of the commission, and then potentially suggest people. I know that Commissioner Davis had indicated verbally his desire to be on the budget. I know Commissioner Penn in past meetings had indicated a deep interest in how the budget was run, and so those two were names that were already proposed. And if you were saying to have an additional person, that would leave a space for one more person.
Do we have a volunteer?
This is Commissioner Westbrook. I'll volunteer.
Awesome. Now, what I will do, this is the chair again. I will leave it to you three or you four to determine who will chair this particular committee. But I like the makeup of that committee. Any discussion about this? This is the chair again. Dr. Newt, do we need to vote on this, or is this just within the chair's power to put this committee together?
My apologies. I was driving, couldn't get my thumb down. So I believe that if we are adding members to a committee that's already been approved, I don't know that that's necessarily an action item unless there were more people who wanted to be on the committee that didn't get selected, and then you'd have to have a vote on the two individuals who weren't selected. But I think if the chair is making an appointment, unless there's discussion or disagreement, I think you're fine.
This is the chair. Thank you for that, Dr. New. Is there discussion? I'll ask again. I like to make up that committee, and it's important. And actually dovetails nicely with what Mr. Graves was talking about today. So what's next on new business? Executive
Narrowing
Director.
the focus of the commission. I know sorry, this is Executive Director. Narrowing the focus of the commission, and we've had much discussion about this. Not even to say that the commission needs to do one thing, right? It could be that the 7 commissioners each decide that they're going to each do the thing that makes most sense for them and their geographic unit. Or I think with Mr. Grays's, that would seem to be an all hands on deck type situation. like I think if the commission decides to take that up, there would need to be a lot of discussion about what that's going to look like, even from my standpoint of how would that actually happen, talking with all the questions of just the logistics of something like that. But everything from just whatever. I know in our last meeting, we talked about perhaps even taking up this notion of power mapping the Black community to try to figure out where all the entities are in Kansas that deal in the Black community so that they all are aware of each other. Again, I from my standpoint as the executive director, I don't have a vote in this. I know from my standpoint as executive director of this body over the last couple of years, I think there is great potential for this commission to be helpful to the Black community. And I think part of that is not being so focused on the legislature, which at times is just, I don't find that a good use of our time and our efforts. And so to figure out some way to actually be helpful for the community and whatever that looks like, I think it's an exciting position to be in because I think the commission can be helpful to the community. It's just, how do you see that happening?
This is the chair. We had early discussions maybe a year or two ago about focusing on ways to encourage entrepreneurship, ways to help Black business. And again, that strikes me as the kind of subject that, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, that'd be something we could support. That's something that I'd certainly like to consider, but I would not force this on the commission. I'd be interested in the discussion, and so I'll open the floor to that discussion. Yes, Commissioner Trent Davis.
Yeah, Commissioner Trent Davis here. I think those two topics, are very good ones. I'm was getting some information together about our Salina Juneteenth celebration. I said, gosh, I need a book that just lets me know where, all of our like-minded and like-affiliated folks are. What organizations do we talk to, or with Medicaid expansion or any other topic? We need to be able to communicate fairly quickly and across a wide geographic range.
Mhm.
Because people always ask, well, what does KAAC do? Who are you? How come we never hear? I mean, we can communicate more effectively if we have a network. But I think entrepreneurship is excellent,
This is the
excellent,
chair.
and
Something that
financial
the zone
literacy.
did not mention is that he has been interested for a long time in developing a kind of directory of Black entrepreneurship, Black businesses around the state. That was, in fact, that was in the packet that he handed me when I met him for the first time. So that could fall under that umbrella as well. Are there other questions from the commission? Floor is open.
This Commissioner C. Davis, and I, as an entrepreneur, obviously think that entrepreneurship could be one of the focuses for CAC. And to your point, Mr. President, Mark, on the directories, I think that's something that could be easily completed because I know the um, entrepreneurial support organizations, which we just title ESOs for short, each have a directory already in their specific organization. And I'll just speak to Black Entrepreneurs of the Flint Hills because I also help be a part of our directory in creating that, which is now also you can do in a paper hard copy format, obviously, but then also a digital copy. So I think getting the buy-in and partnership from, Creating Wichita, Black Entrepreneurs, Topeka Group, Lawrence, that could be one initiative that would not be hard and would make room for more initiatives. Like that wouldn't take, I don't know, this whole time because I think we're, more than three-fourths of the way. I think what would be fun with that and creative with that is what Commissioner T. Davis suggested as becoming one of the ways we communicate, maybe the main way, I don't know, but certainly one of the ways CAT communicates with the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Kansas. I think philosophically, from that perspective, I think it would be huge and do a lot for the relationship building that these organizations I'm speaking of, and maybe others that I'm not aware of, and also the Black churches, NAACP, and other Black affiliated groups. I think this is a great vehicle to build capacity and to build community and relationship. I know personal things that we have encountered in Black Entrepreneurs of the Flint Hills where relationship building was key and has been key. And without that, things tend to not move forward. So I feel like having a directory at this level, at the state level, certainly would add to that relationship building because it brings us all together. And I feel like that all of the groups, some of the groups, we're doing the same things, right, for our entrepreneurs in our communities. And I think that sometimes breeds competition when clearly there's no competition to be had. First of all, we don't live in the same places. And we all need the same access to funds that Mr. Lazone was talking about. I know that Network Kansas does some of that in their funding, and I personally, as a business owner, have received grant funding and technical assistance from Network Kansas and other groups where it's really a challenge and a lot of loopholes for businesses to access that funding. And some give up. Some are, the paperwork, the documents, it can be a lot. So I think having assistance to get through and get to access for funding is key from my own personal experience and other of my own clients that I've helped get grant funding and other things. But I think a great start is this statewide directory. And I think it would then even shine a light and example, honestly, for other states about how we're moving forward from being very siloed ESO organizations in Junction and Wichita, Salina, and wherever to like this kind of collective. And I don't think budget wise it would kill us. Like it would be a lot of money to do that. And then just figuring out, I guess, who and how and what we where we would house that, how people could access it, and then definitely as a line of communication. Sounds like a real exciting initiative that I definitely would support. Thank you.
Yeah, this is the chair. You mentioned competition, Dr. Crystal Davis. Can you talk a little bit more about that? I kind of like that idea, if I'm understanding you right.
Yes. So what I mean is there has been, I think, a prevalent attitude and energy around ESOs, entrepreneurial support organizations. Although the term's been around a long time, I think communities and states really paying attention and really building those ecosystems out has just really reached top tier. I'm going to say in the last 5 years, maybe 10. Like in the Black community and Black business, those are Black and Brown, let me say BIPOC. We didn't know Network Kansas. We didn't know who they were. We didn't know we could apply for funding for them. We didn't know they had money to help entrepreneurs, all the things. And so as the ecosystems kind of started sprouting up, and for us, the Black entrepreneurs, almost now 3 years ago, Create Space in Wichita, a little longer than us, Lawrence's, Topeka's group. So we all about 3, 4 years of getting our footing, and then be able to make progress and impact. The Kaufman Foundation does a lot of work with that. And really, we're only prior to now working mainly with businesses and ESOs in Kansas City. But recently, in the last year, whatever, year and a half, they have opened up and saw the light, that they could make really impact with their funding and money and all the things for more than just businesses in Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri as well. And so I know our group specifically has been able to get in there. I know Wichita's group create campaign is have been able to benefit extremely from education, technical assistance, and all the things from the Kaufman Foundation. I think one thing they would even nod at, honestly, just in my own opinion as a 20-year veteran entrepreneur, is that Kansas, at this level, at KAAC, is driving forward and moving the needle. And I think one beautiful way to do that is a directory that we're speaking about, and then figure out how that directory can, and I, top of mind, so many ways it could impact Kansans in entrepreneurialism.
Mm.
And I'd love to be able to offer those thoughts. I think what it will sideswipe a little bit, Mr. Mark President, is this competition between ESOs that we're all grabbing and fighting for the same thing, when really that's not the case. We are providing the same types of services and programming that's desperately needed in our local communities. Because we can't go to Wichita all the time, small businesses, and do everything Christina does. But if we have that here, and I think the collaboration is better. It was not in the beginning, but we've become to build that capacity and collaboration. And I just feel strongly that having a directory at this level will help to sidestep kind of the siloed work that's happening, because the siloed work is what we're all doing. And we don't have Kansas City. So I think Wichita, Lawrence, all of us that are together can build up this kind of brigade of ESOs, to show kind of our also strong effort, and strong work. And I think a directory is a great pathway to the bigger picture.
That's great. Thank you for indulging me, Dr. Crystal Davis. We are approaching a time boundary. Are there any other brief statements on this topic?
This is the executive director. My only question is, how is this director going to be compiled? If this is the work of the commission, what is the commission going to do to compile this? Because right now it sounds like you guys are saying, "Hey, executive director, go compile a directory." So I just want to know, how does this involve? What does it look like for the commission to do this work, and how can I support?
This is the chair.
The
he was presenting the idea of a directory. We did not get into the discussion of how it would be compiled. One of the things that I immediately thought about was how a list like that would be so valuable. It would be proprietary. Everybody would want it. Anybody with anything to sell would want it, which would mean that we would need more infrastructure in its production and its updating and things like that. I do not think that that would be something that we would force on our executive director. And I hope I'm not speaking for anyone else. I saw some nods.
You just need to think that one through. I know, and we're not going to solve it in the next 4 minutes. This notion of a list being proprietary, if it's being housed within the Kansas State Governor's office, I'm not sure that would fly.
Exactly.
I don't think we'd be able to say, "Oh, this is proprietary." We're gonna just assert. Like, I think that would be. I don't know. You just need to think that one through.
Yeah, we have a quick statement from Dr. Trent Davis.
Trent Davis here. I would imagine that there are ways to identify businesses that already identify as minority-owned businesses. You can call through that list. Locally, we each would have to do our own work in our own neighborhoods. Organizations like Black Entrepreneurs of the Flint Hills, can lend their expertise. There may be enough seed organizations already doing it to just serve as that initial fertile ground and build off of it. But the further west we get, where we don't have representation, it'll be word of mouth, and we just have to contact folks. We may be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, as we near our time boundary, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
I so move.
It's been moved. We have a second. We have a question from our executive director.
There's one other thing that's on the agenda that I do want to bring up.
Oh, sure.
And that's only because I put it on the agenda because I didn't want to forget to talk about it. Is that, remember, as per all kinds of things, where is a report due of your activities as they relate to KAAC, and that is going to be due at the on March 31st. Remember, it does not have to be fancy. It does not have to have graphs and full color and all the things. Just some sort of, this is what I did in the name of KAAC, right? And then I will everyone, including myself, has a report done every quarter that I will then compile at the end of the year in order to put a KAAC annual report together. That is something that many people have clamored for many years. And I think if we just take it a little bite at a time, we can start to work towards that. So just as a reminder that all commissioners will be expected to do that. And the first one is due March 31st. Also, my last reminder, again, I'm glad it's going to be on here and recorded, is that if you do travel at all for KAAC, please let me know. We do have on the YouTube, the travel compensation video is there so that if we are traveling for whatever reason, but if you're traveling for the sake of KAAC, let me know. Please tell me ahead of time. That way I can make sure we're in contact with Kate and get all the correct paperwork done. Okay, that's all.
We have a motion on the floor. We need a second.
I second. This is Commissioner C. Davis.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. The ayes have it.
Aye.
The ayes have it. See you next month. Thanks for a great meeting today.
Bye.